We're back with President and member of the Board of Directors of Adknowledge, Brett Brewer. How many people did you have on your MySpace team at that time?
About 23 or 24.
And how soon did you folks have to bring on more staff because of the explosive growth?
Like the third or fourth week. The third or fourth week. I mean, we had gotten pretty good at seeing what was working and funneling into that growth. And clearly MySpace worked better than anything else we had ever launched before or since. So as soon as we saw those metrics, as soon as we saw how often people were coming to the site, how long they were spending on the site, you knew you had a formula there. And consequently, we just had to fill it both people-wise and also servers and having the technology infrastructure to support that growth.
What was your life? What were you feeling emotionally, physically, mentally, knowing that everyone's all of a sudden coming to your site? They're excited about it, you're excited about it, and you don't really know the path it's going to take. And then eventually, it led to huge success.
Right. So that time, honestly, to put it in perspective, we were a public company. Intermix Media, the parent of MySpace. We had been public for 5 years at that time, 4 years at that time. And we were doing roughly $80 million a year in revenue. That was the size of the business. So we launched MySpace. It's working very well at month 2, at month 3, at month 4. But revenue-wise, it's very small. And compared to everything else that's going on, we clearly had to keep focus on the other parts of the business that were actually generating the operating income. So initially, it was excitement over the product, excitement over the fact that I thought if we executed correctly, we could have a huge success on our hands. But by that same token, it was just kind of rooting for that product. But it was also staying focused on our core business and keeping all the engines going.
Okay, so Intermix was already public. You founded the company with your partners?
Yes.
When did Intermix go public?
April 14th, 1999.
When did you started in 98?
98, yeah. So it was a different era. It was the era of speed back then.
So let's talk about that. How
Sure.
did you meet your partners? How did you guys get this thing formed? And what was it like to take something IPO in a year?
Yeah, so it was a different era. Obviously, it was the early 90s or the late 90s. And the whole concept of internet and internet businesses getting off the ground there was tons of money chasing everything under the sun. I went to UCLA, graduated in 1996 with the guy I started with. He was my roommate after college. We saw a bunch of companies getting off the ground and getting funding very quickly. One of them being a company called theglobe.com, which if you go back and look in 1998, it was the best performing IPO there was. It opened at like 10 and closed that day at like 34. And essentially it was a entertainment content company online that was a little gaming oriented around games. But it was two young guys in their 20s that were based on the East Coast. And I remember literally seeing reading about it and saying, what? These guys are launching this internet content company and they're in New York, we're here in LA. Like we can make that work. We can get some traction behind that. So initially we sort of self-funded and then went out on the road to raise money behind this idea of an LA-based entertainment internet company. It took about 10 months to raise the initial funding, and it was very typical of the fundraising process where there were no's from probably 100 different groups, and those no's lasted maybe like 8 or 10 months. And almost to the point where we questioned many times the actual direction we were going. Initially, we were going more after angel financing, and the Southern California group of angels and individuals, calling on individuals, that didn't have a lot of traction, so we switched more to venture capital. We just weren't a developed enough business, or certainly didn't have the background, so that didn't really work either. Long story short, a group in New York called Gerard Clara Madison is a small boutique investment bank, and the head and the founder of that investment bank's named Manny Gerard. And when he saw our business plan and kind of liked the fact that we were these young guys that weren't really going about it the traditional way and just wanted to give it a shot and try and make it work, he said, you know what, guys, I'm in, I'll support that, I'll put in $250,000 of my own money. Gerard Clara Madison, the bank, then said, well, if Manny's going to do it, then we'll put in $250,000. And from that moment, everything else just fell in line. He has a lot of personal credibility, so consequently we were able to then go back to the other people we've been talking about, and we raised $7.2 million over the next 45 days.
But you guys, did you have experience in business before that?
Not much. Not much. Just trying to start little businesses. I was doing a lot of real estate, actually, in like 96 and 97.
You mean you were doing it in college?
Graduated in 96, so this was just out of college.
So what was your major in college?
Business economics. But at UCLA, my one thing about college, and I say this all the time when I speak at colleges, is I think college is great. I'm a huge fan of college in general, but as far as business experience and really learning, I think there's nothing compares to starting a business or joining people that are starting a business, or big business, small business, it doesn't matter. The amount you learn in a month actually doing it, I think, is more than you learn in 4 or 5 years in college. So I don't really think, I'd love to say UCLA, you know, there was some great things other than contacts and stuff certainly came out of that, but for the most part it was figuring it out our own and getting, you know, that breakthrough support from some key guys.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more on Greater Good Radio.